But yeah, the game industry is basically burning down. Layoffs are unfreaking believable right now. And the most
Mhm.
recent ones that happened this week was a lot of layoffs at EA, plus the cancellation of the Mandalorian game that we just heard about like 2 weeks ago. Like, I feel like it was literally 2 or 3 weeks ago. The reports are coming out. Oh yeah, there's a Mandalorian game being made by Respawn. Which, all right, that makes sense. They have the Star Wars Jedi games. It makes sense for them to tackle another Star Wars project. No, Mandalorian is now dead. It's canceled. Not happening. Sorry about it. Get over it. But I kind of wanted to just open the question about where we're at on the gaming industry. So we're going to chat about that, plus whatever else, a couple of random things here or there with the gaming industry burning down. We do have one survivor in all of the midst, and that is Toys for Bob, who was set to be closed. Let's not forget this. They were set to be closed down by Microsoft, and they managed to dodge it, and they've now become an independent studio. They managed to buy themselves out of Activision Blizzard and become an independent studio, and they are not closing. So big shout out to that. So, and then we have some other kind of things all throughout the show here today. We'll give a shout out to our two sponsors. It'll be a great time. We'll have a phenomenal show, the best we can, going into our wonderful break week.
You know what's bad, Alex? You saying that Toys for Bob survived. All I can picture is they pulled out that crash suit and someone just kicks open the door of Microsoft, flipping them off while walking out.
Right, right. They made it though. You know what I mean? And they're not the only survivors in all this. Saber Interactive bought themselves out for $500 million. That's a lot of money. I think it was
Yes, it
five.
is.
I think it was 500 mil. I think it was 500 mil. They bought themselves out because I think they were with Embracer, if I remember correct. I could be wrong on that, but whoever they were with, they bought themselves out of the axing. Because I think Saber, they're the ones that are working on Knights of the Old Republic, which is
Yep.
apparently
It's
not
still
canceled.
alive.
It's not canceled. So, yeah, we have two survivors in the midst of everything. Gearbox appears to be another survivor because they're set to be sold here in the next coming month, apparently per report. So it looks like they're going to live. It's been a time for the gaming industry, man. So let's lead off with that. Let's lead off with the gaming industry. So like I said, EA's been hit with a big one, which includes some stuff at Respawn that's canceling the recently leaked Mandalorian game. So far in 2024, we are at March 2nd at the time of this live show. You should make sure to check out the show at youtube.com/@Sparky3. Watch us live every Saturday around 6 o'clock, except for today we're live around 8 o'clock, but it is what it is. So far in just 2 full months, we have over 8,100 layoffs. 8,100 plus layoffs across the gaming industry. And then including that is stuff like Microsoft. Of course, they had 1,900 on the chopping block. Sony's had quite a bit, which includes stuff at Insomniac and Naughty Dog has been hit with it. EA's just got hit with theirs. Sega of America has been hit. Twitch and Discord's both been hit. Riot got hit with like 500 plus, super massive. Saw that one this past week. They got hit with quite a bit, which is unfortunate because they got a lot of stuff going on with Dark Pictures Anthology and stuff like that. I think they've got, I don't know if they're the ones working on the Until Dawn remaster, but I think there's some other projects they're working on. So unfortunate on that one. Eidos Montreal, which, did like Guardians of the Galaxy and a few others. They've gotten hit with some. And then, of course, Unity. But that one's not surprising with the shit show that happened from the former CEO before he stepped down when they tried to adjust their entire game plan. But just a huge amount of layoffs, 8,100, right, in just 2 months. And I don't see it stopping. So the whole conversation point that I had for this is I wanted you guys' thoughts because this has been such a conversation that I have seen nonstop on X or Twitter, whatever you prefer to call it, of do we see a crash in the gaming industry coming when it comes to AAA games where they're still going to happen, but they're going to happen in less quantities because of just how large the budgets have been, the development time where we're seeing games like Activision Blizzard's, announce new IP they announced like a year and a half ago that's been in development for 5 years now. It's been canceled because of how far away it was from coming out. 5 years of development down the drain because of this. Do we see a crash in the gaming industry? Because I think one thing that opened a lot of people's eyes is when like the leaked development cost of let's say Spider-Man 2 came out, where it cost $300 million to develop that game beginning to end. So it's like you see costs like that and you can only imagine the cost of others. Games make money. We know that. But it's like how quickly are they going to turn around the return time, and how many of these AAA titles are going to come out that are actually going to turn around the profits? Like Suicide Squad, that's a AAA game, okay? already has lower player numbers than Gotham Knights, right? Unfortunately, Skull and Bones is a quadruple A title, and obviously that's a shit show, but everyone saw that coming from a mile away. Like, there's a lot of triple A titles that come out, sure, but how many actually stick and how many actually make the money? So it's like, do we see here in the next few years, do we see a gaming industry that's going to be mostly ruled like from the mainstream perspective by double A titles with your few triple A's coming out? Like, what do you guys think about where the gaming industry is when it comes to like triple A titles and just the increasing cost and development time? Do we see a game crash coming? Because that's the conversation I see all over Twitter from game developers that I follow, insiders and everything. What do you guys think?
Well, honestly, like from my perspective with like the games that I tend to play and just the people that I kind of play games with and hear from them. I mean, double A games and indie games have ruled the space. It's, I mean, even for the past couple years, we get the occasional triple A big game that comes out and delivers what it promised.
Yeah.
More often than not, though, it doesn't happen to the point where it's kind of a 50-50 flip when a game comes out. Is it going to be good or is it going to just be mediocre at best?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, I mean, I think it was last week we kind of highlighted some of these big games that have, or like these big kind of double A games that have kind of ruled the gaming space and gaming talk, especially like streaming talk, for the better part of the last year.
Yep.
And it's typically games that are made by smaller teams, if not one person,
mm-hmm.
that their core focus is like making a game not necessarily the best it can be, but certainly the most fun.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, it had like for the past, I'd say 5, maybe 10 years, it's not the $60, $70 games that are, I mean, they're the ones that make the headlines because when they do blow up and they do make what they told us they were going to make, of course, it's the ones that break all the records. They're the game of the years. But other than that, it's been the $30 to $50 price games made by smaller studios that tend to be the ones that everybody remembers from the year.
True.
Because I mean, case in point, look at Helldivers 2.
Yeah, I was gonna say with your whole argument that you're making here about with indies and smaller titles, double A is kind of ruling it. I feel like with the potential idea of a gaming crash, I think companies are going to look at what let's look at we talked about this just last week. 2 months into the year, the two games that have dominated the gaming space are both like double A, like indie titles. I wouldn't say Helldivers 2 is an indie, but you know what I mean. Smaller titles.
Yeah. It's
World and Helldivers 2.
It's in that like under $50 price point that people typically associate with like double A games.
Yeah.
So it's like that type of game, and it's the other thing we've talked about. It's kind of been the renaissance of the co-op games as well.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like I think I mean, AAA games haven't been the dominant force in gaming for years.
Mm-hmm.
It's occasionally like once a year we make it one that comes out and like blows away all expectations, or like say like last year where we get a couple of them that came out and were just really good. But typically, that's not what anybody's actually playing. People are playing the $20, $30 Steam game that two guys made that they can play for 500 hours with their buddies and have a great time with.
Yeah. What about you, Zach?
I mean, speaking on just like specifically a AAA game aspect of it, I mean, what are we constituting as necessarily a crash? Like just a full blown dead stop of AAA games, or
extreme slowdown where all the time, like we bitch about this all the time, where we see announcements for, oh, we're making this new AAA FPS story adventure game, oh, we're making this new AAA action adventure game of where it's like these new formed studios, right, of like former devs of this and that, you know what I mean? Like we see that all the time. Like once a month we'll get 4-year too early announcement. I think stuff like that's going to stop. Like I see us reaching a point in the next few years, especially as we continue to get more and more layoffs because of these long development times and these huge costs, where it's like I feel like the AAA titles, like we're just going to see less and less of them, especially from the big studios. Like I see it being one of those things that we'll still see AAAs from the big studios, but I think we're going to see less. I could definitely see a route where we see these big studios focus in a lot more on just making good quality AA games that cost less and get out quicker.
Well, I'm not sure about that. I mean, in terms of, I guess in my mind, I don't really see it as a crash. I see more of a readjustment thing because it is the thing that these production times and everything are costing way too much versus what a lot of these considered AAA games are definitely not making back at all. We can see that just with like Suicide Squad and then Skull and Bones and like a couple others, but more or less a readjustment of just reapproaching the AAA games as seeing we are going to see less coming out more consistently, and hopefully they put more time into the actual game mechanics and everything, because a lot of what we see in AAA games nowadays are very much just a pomp show of just, hey, we got these voice actors, we got these IPs, yada yada yada, and then some gameplay that's like, people like this. I mean, it should work, right? It's in the genre.
Yeah,
we're not.
I was just gonna say, like, adding on to that, it's not that there aren't studios that aren't putting out good games, because it's a thing of just the studios that are known for making the good AAA games still, they're only putting out one game every 5 years.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because it's like because it's like the From Software with Elden Ring. It's like we're just now getting a DLC for it.
Yeah.
And it's like the game's been out, and it's like it took over the world. Everybody, it's unanimously loved by everyone.
I mean, people are still playing it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, look at stuff like look at the past decade from Sony Santa Monica. And it's like there are certain studios that are, it's like they're making what we should be getting from AAA games and from AAA studios. It's just the ones that are actually doing it how we expect them to. They're doing what they should. They're taking 5 years to make a game, or 6 years to make a game.
They're sitting on stuff. I mean, we'll see something here and there, but they're not full blown advertising it like some others are. Which I think sort of really killing the AAA scene is just that, because the good ones are being overshadowed until they come out and people can experience them by the large amount of AAA games that are just constantly pumping money into advertisement.
True. Like when it comes to that, like I think a good example of just to look at of a studio that just does it right, I think is like Larian. You know what I mean? I think we can all agree to that. It's like a studio that does it right. And honestly, I'm going to manifest here because it just looks freaking incredible. But another one that just seems to be doing it right is I think it's what their studio called, Science Project, maybe. I don't remember. But the Black Myth Wukong devs, you know what I mean? Indie dev team there, AAA title, just one announcement a year for the past 3 years now. You know what I mean? Past 4 years now. And now we're finally getting the game this year and it looks incredible. And if it comes out and absolutely slaps, then there's another blueprint to follow of just let the team cook. You know what I mean? Let the team just work on it, do their thing. But it's like, the thing is where it comes of like a possible crash when it comes to AAA games, I got to say, I really just think it comes down to the big studios. You know what I mean? Like we're going to see studios like Larian still do their thing, right? If the Black Myth Wukong absolutely slaps, we're going to see that studio continue to do their thing, right? Like we're going to see those guys, like those independents that just let their team does their thing. We're going to see those continue to slap. But it's like, it's like there's almost no patience amongst the big studios outside of their couple of properties. Like a property like God of War, like Spider-Man, like, Elder Scrolls. Outside of those properties, it's like, nope, let's get this shit out the door. Get it out the door.
Yeah, I mean, it's to the point where, like, the right team might get handed a project, but they get handed unrealistic deadlines and unrealistic expectations.
Yeah.
Like Redfall.
Well,
they didn't want to make that. Come on now.
I mean, they didn't want to.
They were
it,
hoping that Phil was going to cancel it whenever Xbox bought ZeniMax and everything.
Yeah, it's like but to your point with Redfall, it's like, a game that a team doesn't want to make, they're handed. They're told it has to be done this way. Do it by this point in time. It's happening no matter what. No matter what you say. So they just gotta go. All right. Well, if that's what you want to do, we're not gonna really put effort into it. We're gonna make you some shit and see what happens.
Yeah.
And see how you like that. And then meanwhile, teams that get something that they really want to work on, I mean, even if they're handed an unrealistic deadline, they'll actually do their best on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, more often than not, it's a lot of these studios are just, I mean, they're just handed something and told, do it by this point, do it this way, and they can't do it. I mean, it's kind of on the bigger studios to give them the space or give them the time or help them out in some way, and it's not happening.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate because like a lot of these games, like they sound interesting. You know what I mean? Like when I see these announcements like once a freaking month, it feels like, where it's like this brand new studio with a former head of development at this studio that worked on these games, and this guy over here that worked on they're coming together to make this cool studio and making a AAA game that's going to be kind of about this. Like, it sounds like an interesting concept, but I read that, I'm just like, great. Is this going to be another one of those games that's going to crash and burn because of whatever reason? Because like a game. Go ahead.
We're at that point in the gaming industry where we're using the movie theater billboards with the big names on it to attract people to a movie they know nothing about.
Yeah, exactly. It really is, because that's how it is when these game announcements come out. Is like all of this guy that worked for this studio worked on these 7 great games. Like come on, it's gonna be awesome. Because like
he maybe did some of the texture.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right, man. It's just like a big billboard. It's basically like what Crime Boss, like Rock City, whatever, tried to be with their ridiculous cast. You know what I mean? Where it was just a cast and no game. And honestly, another great example of that is Fort Solace, because that story is so lackluster. But it was that game was just pretty much led by the fact that Troy Baker and Roger Clark's in it. You know what I mean? Very mid game though.
It's one of those things too, like you speaking of like games getting announced. It's like, oh, such and such is working with this person to make this game. Here's a cinematic trailer for it. At this point, a game does not exist until we see an actual in-depth gameplay trailer where we can tell that they're playing in engine.
True.
Yeah.
Until that point, I don't believe a game exists.
That's fair.
And it's like, and I've held firm with this on a lot of different games.
Digimon Survive.
It's like, yeah, it's like I didn't believe that game existed because we never actually saw anything showing what it was,
except one trailer.
All we got, yeah, it's like, and then it was still like unsure because you've showed us nothing for like 5 years.
Yeah,
tell us something.
Yeah,
but now it's like the time frame gets less and less, and it's more cinematic than ever is what we get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's also a killer too, because it's like we'll get like an announcement 4 years too early, and then a year or two later we'll get a cinematic trailer of just showing one quick thing. Because like a good example of a game that I'm really interested in, and I have faith in it just from like who is leading the project. But it's like great examples, that Captain America Black Panther game, made by the studio that's led by Amy Hennig, who was basically, she was the director of every Uncharted game. You know what I mean? So just based on that alone, her leading this project, I have faith that it'll at least be an entertaining game. I don't know if it'll be a 10 out of 10, but it'll be a nice 7 out of 10 fun experience. We'll see when it comes out. But that's another one. It's like we've gotten one quick little cinematic trailer, and does the game exist? We'll see. Am I going to see on the news 3 months from now the game got canceled? Yeah, we'll see.
You know my favorite example of showing nothing, or basically just showing, hey, we're making this, to, hey, look what we've done. Here's us actually playing it, is God of War 2018.
Oh yeah, true.
If you think back to that, it got its E3 teaser trailer, where it was basically just Kratos walking out of the darkness, and you see him, and it cuts off. The next time we saw that game, it was a variation of that trailer, that led into them playing a gameplay demo of it.
Yep.
Where he was, it's like, granted they built it specifically for that show. There's a whole documentary about the making of that game and process behind it. But it was one of the best examples of here's us making something new, and the next time we see the game, they go, here's what we're doing, and we're actually going to show it to you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just one of the best examples. And then from there, it was just everybody believed. Nowadays, it would be, okay, well, here for the next 2 years, we're gonna show you just the name of the game and a quick little 5-second cinematic, and then 2.5 years from now, we'll show you an extended trailer, and then the game will come out and you won't know what's happening.
Yeah. I mean, that's basically the cycle of things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and man, it sucks. Like, like it sucks that it feels like we're reaching this point that we are, because it's like, I've seen this comment before and I've shouted out before where it's just like, if I was, I've seen people talk about, it's like, if I was a game dev, I would feel horribly uncomfortable like moving my family anywhere for a job opportunity. So it's just like big shout out to remote stuff, right? Because like that, at least makes the gaming industry, solid to kind of be around. But like with all the layoffs, I saw one person make a comment. She's just like, the layoffs have been like so fierce. I don't even know which of my friends are employed anymore. Like, I mean, like it's just like left and right nonstop.
Which is sort of funny because amongst all the layoff articles, there was one where Rockstar is pleading their employees, come back to the office, please.
Yeah. So
we can do regular work days.
Yeah, so Rockstar is starting in April. They're asking their employees to come back to office 5 days a week to work on GTA 6 in prep for the big launch. And I read that headline, I read that article, and you know what I actually read, Zach?
What?
What I actually read is, we can't trust y'all motherfuckers to not leak this game. Get your ass back in office so we can watch you. That's what I read when I saw that article.
What I will say one thing is, I can fully understand like some of these bigger studios that are working on like bigger name projects, like a GTA, like a God of War, like a
Zelda.
Whatever the next, Zelda.
Yeah,
I can fully understand them being like, you work for this company, get the fuck in the office.
Right.
It's like I could understand. It's like, okay, you signed on to this team, and there was a period in time where we couldn't all be together and work on this. It slowed us down tremendously. Get the fuck back here.
Yeah, and Elder Scrolls
It's like you know what team you signed on for. Don't try to pull no shit.
Right.
We're not doing this shit anymore where people can leak us.
Yeah, it's like we just don't want to get leaked.
It's like there's certain teams where it's just like, you join that team. It's like, just accept what it is and get back in there.
Right. It's like you signed up for it. You knew. You know what I mean? No, I mean the gaming industry is in a very awkward place right now, because it's like every day I hop on Twitter, I'm just like, all right, let's see what else. Let's see who else got laid off. What's the next round? Okay, got something trending over here. Why is this studio trending? What happened now? So I don't know. It's in a very awkward place. It's like, will we see a crash come with AAA games? Time will tell. I kind of lean yes. We'll see a crash to some extent, where we'll see, less start development. We'll see less of these announcements of these studios. Like, we're working on this AAA game. I think we may see less of that and more like, we're working on this game and it's more like a AA title that's just going to pop off, be great. Everyone loves it. High review scores and have a great time. I don't know. Time will tell. You know what I mean? But I also think, we'll start to see potentially, studios maybe look at a Larian and look at what like Black Myth Wukong's team is doing. If Black Myth Wukong pops off, like me and John think it will, and just take a page out of their book and just do things right. Or honestly, I'll go ahead and say it. Take a page out of Nintendo's book. I mean, like, even at the lowest of low during the Wii U era, no layoffs happened. None. Zero. The head man at the time took cut out of his own salary to make sure no one got laid off. Like, take a page out of Nintendo's book. I'm gonna take a page out of Larian's. I don't know. Figure it out, guys. It's like, these are multi-billion-dollar companies, multi-million-dollar companies, depending on the company, right? It's like, let's figure this thing out. I don't know.